الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. It is Wednesday, the 8th of December 2021, and in our series, Reflections on the Holy Quran, this is broadcast number 282. In recent days, we have been looking at the meaning of the words in verse 96 of the second chapter of the Holy Quran, Al-Baqarah. And this is the fourth broadcast in that, looking at that verse 96. I had hoped to cover this word yesterday, but it was not to be. We ran out of time. Just to remind you that the Lahore Ahmadiyya community was created by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. And he taught that although people believe in the coming of a prophet after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, the Holy Quran says that the Holy Prophet Muhammad was Khatamun Nabiyyin, and the Holy Prophet explained that by saying it means there is no prophet after me. So now no prophet can come, old or new. However, he did also say that if Muslims go astray, then reformers or mujaddideen will be sent. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was one of these reformers. His distinction was that the Holy Prophet Muhammad prophesied the coming of a Messiah and a Mahdi, and these titles we believe applied to Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib. Alayhi salam. Now, people are also fond of calling each other kafirs for these and other differences of opinion on matters of doctrine and so on. But Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad turned our attention to the saying of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, where the Holy Prophet said that if one reciter of the kalima says to another reciter of the kalima that you're not a Muslim, then the person saying it is the one who's closer to heresy. So this was how strictly the Holy Prophet forbade this heresy making that we Muslims are so fond of. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad also taught that although people say that some verses, some prophetic revelation has been missed out from the Holy Quran, such as Ayah Rajam and Surah Walayat and so on, he said this is totally wrong. God has said that he has revealed the Holy Quran and he shall protect it. So no prophetic revelation can have been missed out. Similarly, people believe that some verses of the Holy Quran have been abrogated. Hazrat Masih Maud taught that this is nonsense. No verse of the Holy Quran can be abrogated. After all, God has said in the Holy Quran that he takes the responsibility of making sure that it remains in a pure form. So how can verses be missing from it, and how can verses from it be abrogated? Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad also taught that jihad, whereas others say jihad means take the sword, go and kill people if they don't embrace Islam and so on. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught that yes, jihad is a fundamental duty of every single Muslim. But jihad as defined by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, not the doctrine that people made up later on. And the Holy Prophet, while returning from a battle, said, "From the minor jihad, we now turn to the major jihad, which is a jihad against our own souls." So, with that, let us go to the verse of the Holy Quran that we are going to discuss today. Chapter 2, verse 96, as I said. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولتجدنهم أحرص الناس على حياة ومن الذين أشركوا يود أحدهم لو يعمر 1000 سنة وما هو بمزحزحه من العذاب أن يعمر والله بصير بما يعملون. And certainly you will find them the greediest of people for life, greedier even than those who set up gods with Allah. One of them loves to be granted a life of 1,000 years, and his being granted a long life will in no way remove him further off from Allah's chastisement. And Allah is seer of what they do. The word that we are going to look at is Yavuddu. And we were going to look at this word yesterday, but it was not to be. I spent so much time on the previous word that we didn't have time. So I'm relieved because in the Urdu broadcast, I had to spend minutes looking for my notes about the meaning of this word. So, al-wuddu, it means to love something or desire something. Because obviously, you only desire something if you love it. If you hate something, you don't want it. So, in chapter 3, verse 21, the Holy Quran says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ وَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And He put in your hearts love and kindness. Mawadda wa rahma. Or in another place, chapter 19, verse 96, the Holy Quran says, Sayaj'alu lahumur rahmanu wudda. Chapter 19, verse 96. And God will create in others' hearts love for them. And what this love is explained in chapter 8, verse 63, where the Holy Quran says, لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم. That if all the prayers of the world were spent, then you would not have been able to create love in their hearts. And then an interesting point I noticed was this, because you see, Christians, when they criticize Islam, one thing they say is that, God of Islam, Allah is harsh. He's sitting there with a big stick, just waiting and hoping for people to do wrong things so that he can hit them on the head with this stick and so on. There is no kindness, there's no mercy, etc. in Islam, or in the divine being, or the concept of divine being in Islam. But I will read out a number of verses. It's not just once where God, this attribute of God, is stressed. Chapter 85, verse 14, for example. Wahuwal ghafurul wadud. And he is Ghafur. What is Ghafur? Forgiving. Wadud. What is Wadud? Loving. So he forgives humanity because he loves it. And again, in chapter 11, verse 19, chapter 11, verse 90, Inna Rabbi Rahimun Wadud. And there is no doubt that my Lord, my Rabb, is Rahim, is merciful. My Rabb is merciful and loving. Rahim, Wadud. And you have, we have 99 names of God and 99 name of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Basically, they represent their attributes, their qualities, and these are two attributes of Allah, two of the names of Allah, Rahim and forgiving and merciful. Certainly there are others, but you have to take them in context. When it says, God is just, then you have to, realize that means that if you do wrong, then you will see the result of the wrong thing that you've done. Now, love also means that you desire something, as I said earlier on. So the Holy Quran says in chapter 3, verse 96, وَدَّتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ لَوْ يُضِلُّونَكُمْ. And all Muslims, that some followers of the book, some of the people of the book, they desire that they lead you astray. Vadda, they desire. And similarly, about the non-believers, when it comes to being held accountable for your deeds at the end of the day, chapter 15, verse 3, God says, Rubama yawaddu Yavaddul lazina kafaru law kanu muslimin. It will be at that time that those who deny, they would wish if only they were Muslims. So here the same word is being used for desire, wanting something. Vaddu ma anim, Vaddu ma anittum. Chapter 3, verse 118. And they desire that by whatever means it happens, some difficulty, some problem is created for you. This is talking about the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And again, Wadda kasirum min ahlil kitab, chapter 2, verse 109. And there are many amongst the people of the book who desire this. Why? Because they are jealous. So because their jealousy leads them to desire that, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Muslims would come to some harm. La tajidu qawman yu'minuna billahi wal yawmil akhiri yuwadduna man haddallaha wa rasulah. Chapter 58, verse 22. And those who believe in what? Billah, Allah, wal yawmil akhir, the day, the last day, the day of judgment. You will not see them making friends with enemies of Allah and His Prophet. And in chapter 60, verse 1, it says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tattakhizu aduwwakum awliya'a tulquna ilayhim bil mawadda. Ya ayyuhallazina, O you who believe. And then, well, this would be in brackets. If for my sake, to earn my pleasure, you have come out to fight or left Makkah, close brackets, then for my sake, do not make friends with these people. And yet you send them messages of friendship. So you see, here what you have to remember is this, that there are two levels at which you know people. There is the personal level. You have your neighbor, you have your colleague, you will have your class fellow. And then there is the national level, at which national interest is involved. So what God is saying is this, that where your national interest is involved, do not depend on others. And it's obvious, you see, sometimes I find people saying, well, we entered into a contract with this country or that country, and we did this for them, we did that for them, and afterwards when we needed some help, they refused to help us. They were only after their own self-interest. Of course they were. That's what international diplomacy is about. How you can further your own interests. Whatever Muslim country you're in, They don't care about you. They only care about you so far as you help them further their national interest. Now, take the example of Iran. I was seeing a news item which said that it is now conclusively proven that Dr. Mossadegh's government was overthrown by, well, Americans helped in the overthrow of Dr. Mossadegh's government in Iran. I think it was early 1950s. Why? Because Mossadegh was a Democrat. He didn't care about the American national interest. He cared about Iran's national interest, and the Americans didn't like that. He wanted Aramco to pay more money as royalties for the oil that they were drilling. What would that do? Aramco directors weren't going to put their hands in their pockets and reduce their bonuses and annual salaries. They were going to pass that on to the American people, increase the price of petrol and diesel at the forecourt. And as we all know, once the price of petrol and diesel goes up, that makes transport more expensive. Airlines, railways, cars, buses, trucks. Commute to work is more expensive. If you've got a diesel power station making electricity is now more expensive. So that is going to increase the price of goods in your shops. Food, clothes, because food is transported. It just doesn't just grow in each single area. If you take America's example, you might have to ship your potatoes or grain or whatever it is 2,000 miles to get it to the market. So it was in American interest to get rid of Dr. Mossadegh. He was going to spend money on his own country, these increased funds. And health, he claimed free medical treatment, free education, and whatever else. But that was against the American interest, so they had him overthrown. And the man who took over, he furthered American interest. He spent huge amounts on purchasing armaments from America, which Iran did not need. Iranian Air Force, who were they going to bomb? They had Pakistan on one side, which was a friendly country, Turkey on the other side, which was a friendly country. So why did Iran need such a huge army? It didn't. But what it did do was this. If you got a big army, you need more rifles, then you need more guns, then you need more ammunition, then you need more this, and you need more that. And then parts for them and spares for them. And getting them repaired and serviced and whatever else have you. So you're going to spend that money on buying these things from the United States. That means you wouldn't provide your own people with free health and free education and etc. But they don't care, because that's not in their national interest that your people should be well educated and have all the facilities. Their national interest lies in the fact that you spend huge amounts of money buying arms from them. And that is what the Holy Quran is warning Muslims against. There's another example. Malaysia. At one point, Malaysians got into difficulty, and the they needed funds. So the World Bank went running and said, oh, here's some money. Then Temku Abdur Rahman, he said, no, I don't want any money from you. And they warned him of all kinds of dire consequences and this and that and so on. And he said, well, I don't care. We'll sort out these problems ourselves. And to his credit, he said, well, I'm, very sorry. I don't agree with you. I will sort out my problems my way. And he did. And the result of that was that he saved his country millions, hundreds of millions in interest that would have been paid to these World Bank and all these people. And not only that, they would have got their claws into his economy and dictated to him, sack this one, sack that one, do this, do that, and so on. That would have led to serious problems for his own economy. And that is what the Holy Quran is warning Muslims against. I mean, my next door neighbor is a vicar of the local church, and we're perfectly good friends. He does so much for us. Delivery comes when we are not home, and the delivery man goes next door. He knocks on his door and says, Roger, delivery for your neighbor. And he says, yeah, fine. When he sees we are home, you see him lugging sometimes heavy things for us. And, where needed, we would try and help him, of course. But that is at a personal level. It's not the Muslims' national interest that is involved in that. And that is something that should be very jealously guarded. And Muslims don't do that. The first Iraq war, apart from the fact that Saddam Hussein was stupid, well, he made a stupid mistake in attacking Kuwait and so on. And there is a theory that he was duped into that by the American diplomats, but that's neither here nor there. But then Saudis paid for the Americans to come and fight Saddam and destroy him. They paid for his soldiers, for armaments, and everything. And if that is the level of your unity, then how can you blame others for taking advantage of that? You should admire America for what? You should admire America for putting their own self-interest first. And they do it, and they do it unashamedly, and they're quite right. It's for them to look after their national interest. It's for us to look after ours. Don't go blaming them that they did it for their own national interest. When it suited them, Iran was a friend. They were selling it in tens of millions, hundreds of million pounds worth of arms and armaments. And when it didn't suit their national interest, Iran became their enemy and subject to all kinds of restrictions and conditions and so on. And this is what Muslims forget. that, let's take the example of, two brothers living in a house, and they're fighting with each other because, some friend or some neighbor across the road or someone is putting one at the other's throats. So who's going to benefit? It's the person who's setting them to fight each other and kill each other. And yeah, this is what the Holy Quran warns against. And sometimes people object and they say, well, Islam teaches Muslims to hate Jews and Christians and so on. No, Islam is not doing that. What the Holy Quran is doing is warning Muslims. And Muslims have ignored these warnings at their cost. Saudis sided with the British against the Turks. Turks were Muslims, Saudis were Muslims. It was World War I, and Saudis decided to rise in revolt against the Turks and so on. Turks lost the war and so on. They barely managed to save the country that we see today. And what was the result? Despite all the help from Saudi Arabia, Britain had the Balfour Declaration saying we are going to create a country for the Jews. And they divided up the whole of that area between French and the British. And where we are today because of that. So isn't it right that the Quran should warn Muslims against these things? And in fact, I would suggest it's a miracle. In that 1500 years ago, the Holy Quran said this to Muslims. And no one else is going to be your friend. Everyone else is going to be your enemy. So you have to stick together. And, sticking together involves lots of things. And, we should remember that we cannot love God, we cannot serve God unless we love humanity and unless we serve humanity. And that starts with our own people. Not exploiting them, paying them proper wages, making sure that they're living in decent housing, they have access to the medical treatment, their children have access to education, and 1,000 other things. But we don't. We simply, sheepishly, blindly just do what we are told. And then when it turns out that they did it to further their own political ends, then we complain and we say, oh, well, Americans do this for their own self-interest. Of course they do. You should do things for your self-interest. Why are you blaming Americans for doing things which are in their self-interest? With that, I take my leave of you. We've run over our time, for which I apologize. And inshallah, God willing, we will meet tomorrow and carry on with our exchange of views on these things. Thank you for those who sent in comments and so on. It's very difficult to respond to comments and speak at the same time, because then you lose your thread, and also you're typing away while you should be speaking. With a prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep the whole of humanity safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, goodbye.